If you're at 50%, you've really got something special. There was a brand we did this for at 80%. And I was like, let me write you a 6-figure check because I believe this is going to be $1 billion business. And it's true. That's exactly what happened. And it was a result of us just doing this really rigorous and, detailed like funnel testing before the brand launched. Welcome to Limited Supply, the place for refreshingly real takes on what D2C is really like. I'm your host, Nick Sharma. Let's start talking about money. Have you ever added up all the conversions attributed to each of your paid channels and realized that the sum of those conversions is greater than the actual number of conversions on your site? That's likely because most ad platforms tend to overreport and get more credit than they deserve for the conversions they drive. Today, sophisticated marketers are moving away from attribution and moving toward incrementality testing in order to maximize growth and understand efficiency. To find the incrementality of your marketing tactics, you have to run test and control experiments, but these tests are hard to do on your own, and that's why I recommend using House. With House, you have an automated self-service platform that allows you to configure regional test and control experiments to measure incrementality, identify points of diminishing returns, optimally allocate marketing dollars, and maximize your growth. The platform is built by world-class scientists. It allows you to test all your marketing channels, both online and offline. You can measure the impact across all your sales channels, including direct-to-consumer, retail, Amazon, etc. And you can calibrate your in-platform reporting for incrementality with House. My friend Connor at HexClad uses House, and he was actually able to share that when they ran an incrementality test around Meta and Amazon, they realized that a lot of their Meta spend was indirectly driving revenue for Amazon. These learnings actually changed their acquisition strategy for Amazon going forward. If you're a 7-figure brand and you're running on multiple marketing channels, I should say if you're at least a 7-figure brand, then you can potentially save millions of dollars by starting an incrementality practice and learn what's truly driving your business. House uses superior science and makes this type of testing accessible, and so I recommend you check them out. Go to house.io/limited. That's HAUS.io/limited to learn more and get a demo. Welcome back to another episode of Limited Supply. Today is a solo pod, a masterclass specifically on making your first $1 million as a brand. You've just launched your brand. You had all this hype. You spent 2 years building out everything you need for it. And all of a sudden, you're not generating sales. And so today's episode, I want to walk through that, exactly how to go from 0 to 3K a day, which is essentially $1 million a year. And then hopefully you get to 10K a day using some of the similar strategies that I mentioned in the episode. Other notes is we've got a conference. We're going to throw a conference. It's going to be called the Ecom Founders Q4 Summit. You can check it out. It's going to be in New York City on September 26th. We've got a bunch of great speakers, including Harley from Shopify, myself, Ryan from Jolie, a few others. But check it out. It's ecomfounders.com/Q4. That's ecomfounders.com/Q4. And if you've got any questions, hit me on DM or on email. Otherwise, sign up, grab a ticket. If you're a vendor or you want to sponsor it, hit me up and we'll get you something good. Otherwise, I'm excited to see you there. And, if you have any ideas for things you want to hear on stage and whatnot, shoot me a note as well. Otherwise, today's episode is all about going 0 to 1, how you make your first $1 million. I'm very excited for you to listen to it. Please send me feedback. Again, this is one of the solo pods, so definitely send me feedback, and hope you enjoy the episode. All right, so we're back, and this week I want to do something a little bit different. We're going to go back to a solo episode. So like I said before, my 11th solo episode is going to be really good, right? We're on the way there now. This is I believe my 3rd solo episode. Got a lot of good feedback for the second one, so thank you for everybody who sent me emails or Twitter DMs or left a comment on YouTube, but it seems like the solo episodes are really landing, which is awesome. Okay, so for today's episode, I wanted to go into something, and I wanted to talk about, once you launch your brand, how do you really do the 0 to 1, right? That is essentially, in my opinion, the hardest thing to do is figuring out how you go 0 to 1. There's a lot of emphasis that's put on everything before and everything after, right? The before is like the branding, the tech stack, the building the site, the product design, the packaging, the unboxing experience. And then everything after is, after you've hit, let's say 10 million in revenue or, even 5 million in revenue, then it becomes a lot easier to continue scaling a business. And so all that said, today I want to talk about strictly the 0 to 1. It's the hardest part to get right. In my opinion, it is the hardest part of launching a brand, is figuring out, that product market fit, or those angles that are going to get you to that $1 million, your first million. And so today's whole goal is to kind of outline how I think about getting the first million. So, whenever I put out content, whether it's a podcast, an interview, whatever it is, newsletter, which, by the way, if you're not signed up to the newsletter, go to nik.co/email and sign up for the newsletter. It goes out to about 100,000 people every Sunday. It's completely free. It's usually 6 to 8 pages long and very tactical. The idea is that as a bootstrap founder or a first-time founder who's looking to maximize output with limited capital and resources, you should be able to print out this newsletter, highlight things literally on the paper, and then go implement them the next day. That's how I think about it when I write it. I want it to be something, I kind of think of like when I was at Hint 7 years ago, if there was somebody that I could read their newsletter every Sunday, this is what it would be. So every time I write content or put out content, it's really for 3 people. And hopefully you're one of these 3. One is a bootstrap founder. So first-time founder, maximizing output. You don't have funding. You don't have a bunch of capital. You're sort of like scrappy. Second one is the CEO or CMO, or some sort of a marketing or executive focused on scaling a brand that is doing over $30 million a year. I think 30 million is kind of the perfect number in terms of scaling a brand, just because you figured out product market fit, you figured out that you can crack the code online, and now you're probably looking to expand into omnichannel. And then the third person I write for is somebody very specific, which is Kirsten Green. She's a seed stage investor at Forerunner Capital, or Forerunner Ventures. But the idea is that I want to write for somebody who's investing into these companies so that they can just forward it to their founders. And fun fact, she actually signed up for the newsletter a long time ago. So that was cool. But today's podcast is all going to be 0 to 1. It's really focused on the bootstrap founder or the investor who's going to send it to their companies. And the reason I wanted to do this was, this is about 80% of the inquiries I get. Hey, I've just launched. It should be doing this, but it's doing this. How do I get it to, how do I get that 0 to 1 going? About 80% of my mentor pass or intro calls that I do are all around this topic. And 80% of the inbound email that I get, whether it's for Sharma brands, people who want to work with Sharma brands, or people who just email me with certain questions, which happens a lot. I encourage you to do that. It's always around this one topic. So I'm hoping that this episode answers a lot of questions. Maybe you got this episode as a link from somebody who, you were trying to ask them the same question, and this will help. But regardless, as always, please send me feedback or anything you would add or subtract. And yeah. So let's picture this, right? You just quit your cushy salary job, your mortgage and your car payments, they're automatically paid once your paycheck clears into your personal checking account. But then you end up leaving because you've got the next big idea for a category defining CPG or DTC or retail focused brand. You do all your research and development on your product. You speak to your friends, you order samples, you find that one sample that you're going to turn into a perfect V1 of your product. You get some contractors or an agency on board to help with branding, with site design, with packaging design. And then you get your Shopify store and your 3PL all set up. You've got all the apps integrated. You've got your, recharge subscription, whatever it may be. You've got it all in there. And now you're ready to go. You've got some inventory. You're ready to launch. You've got your packaging. All right. So now you start small, right? You text and email everybody that you know. You get them all hyped. You start posting on social media. You even maybe try boosting some of your posts to spread the word. You launch and your day one are a huge success, right? Your family, your friends, your former colleagues, they all buy from your store. You're feeling euphoric. You're like, this is it. Everybody congratulates you on social media. Even your ex-girlfriend or boyfriend reach out, right? Just to say hello. But really, they're just incredibly proud of you for taking that leap. You feel on top of the world, and you know that you're about to be the next big thing as a product. Then day 2 rolls around and your sales drop off a cliff. Your site visits are down 50%. Your conversion rate from day 1 was 7%. Now it's 2%. Now day 3 rolls around. Your sales drop another 50% from day 2. Now your conversion rate's at 1%. Nobody's buying. You're just confused. You're like, what's going on? The buzz dies down. Your launch is officially over and people start to move on. Even though you had all this buzz on day 1, you kind of come to realize that now you're just another brand on the market that needs to compete. And as a founder, you probably start to panic, right? You're like, now what? This is honestly a very classic playbook. This happens whether you are you're starting something out of your bedroom and no one knows about it, or you're a massive celebrity brand, you've just launched and you've got this huge announcement. That same trajectory happens, right? Day one is big, day two is 50%, conversion rate drops, day three is 50% of that, drops even more. And so that's where this 0 to 1 playbook comes in. And it's not necessarily guaranteed that every brand is going to succeed in this way or by following this playbook, but these are some of the things that I've done. And you can give it what I call the good old fashioned Sharma try, meaning you try everything possible. You try to pull all the levers that you can and try to make things work. But again, this is stuff that should work, may not work. You never know. Everybody should test it though. So here's how I would start, right? So first of all, there's the optional pre-launch test. Now, if you've heard any podcasts from Justin Mayers or Nick Mayers, they're the brothers that started Kettle and Fire. They did a really good job of this when they launched Kettle and Fire. And essentially what they did is they built a landing page for the product. They were selling bone broth, or they still sell bone broth under Kettle and Fire. It's actually a massive company. But before they launched it, they did this test with landing pages and created a fake brand, created a landing page for that brand, ran some ads. And essentially what they did is they tested value props, benefits, messaging, merchandising, flavors, all on this fake landing page so that they could try to understand what is the conversion rate of people who A, give us their email, and B, end up making a purchase. And the idea is that they could immediately test that, with $5,000, you could test if this idea even has legs before you end up actually building out the brand and the packaging and, reaching out to a manufacturer. With food products, especially, there's a lot of work that goes into the product development. So this was a really efficient way for them to even validate the concept or the idea that this is something they could sell. So they made a fake landing page with the fake brand. They pushed value props, benefits, and outcomes to a customer of what they could expect. They spent some money behind the ads. They did it with Bing. I would recommend doing it with Meta or Google to drive traffic. Definitely Meta. I'm a fan of Meta because you can also then use that time to actually test. You can look at click-through rate of different headlines or different styles of creative. You might notice that when you're testing different headlines, that one or two headlines actually over-index for click-through rate and drive a higher conversion on the landing page. You might realize that, for example, animations do better than static ads, or a UGC ad doesn't do as well as a static ad. All these things are learnings that are helpful because then, when you decide to build out those funnels and actually launch the brand, you've got these levers these learnings that you can implement. One example is there was a men's telemedicine brand that we helped launch, and they were working with really prominent branding agency. And as they were doing that, we were actually doing a lot of these pre-launch tests to drive email opt-in, and we could quickly understand the style of creative that worked best for this demographic that we're going after, and the headlines that would work best, so that when we actually launched the site, we had the headlines that we already knew would work. We knew that the creative on the homepage, the style of creative would resonate. And, we can take the learnings from what we're doing pre-launch and actually implement them into the process of designing the brand and then the site itself. Okay, so back to this pre-launch test. We've got the landing page, we've got some ads. The only other thing you need is a conversion event. I've talked about conversion events before. It's essentially the event that you are telling Facebook ads or Google ads as what defines success. So I'll give you two examples. In this example with Kettle and Fire, they actually had people purchase on the page, and then they would reach out to them and refund them and say, hey, thanks so much for purchasing and believing in us. We're actually a few months away, but we'll keep you on the list for when we launch. So because they have a purchase, that tells Facebook, or in this case, Bing, hey, send more people like this. Those are the type of people we want to see. And it creates this feedback loop back to the ad platform. When we did it with Jolie, we had people drive to the landing page and fill out the water report. So the water report was actually the conversion event we went toward. And we told Facebook, hey, find more people like this who are likely to fill out the water report. And that's what we want to optimize toward. Now, what this does is obviously, one, it starts to give you some leads for when you launch the brand. But two, it really helps you understand, okay, is there product market fit, right? If I'm collecting opt-in for email If I've got a 30% opt-in, that's a pretty solid, that means like just under 1 in 3 people are giving me their information. They're interested, right? That's a pretty solid, I would invest in something that had a third opt-in. If you're at 50%, you've really got something special. There was a brand we did this for at 80%. And I was like, let me write you a 6-figure check because I believe this is going to be $1 billion business. And it's true. That's exactly what happened. And it was a result of us just doing this really rigorous and, detailed like funnel testing before the brand launched. Throughout the entire process, we could validate demand and ensure that there's juice to be squeezed with this angle and story. And it gives confidence to stand the brand up, right? And so all in all, this whole thing, right? The pre-launch test, setting it up, running the ads, understanding the results, all in, if you're really spending a bunch, you're probably 5 to 10 grand max. You could probably do this for just under 5 grand as well. But what you really want to do is just make sure that you understand it's going to work, it's got potential, and you've got the data to back it up. So, okay. Now let's move on to the actual launch. So the thing that a lot of people think about with launch is like launch has to be the biggest moment, right? And honestly, it doesn't. In fact, some of the best brands I've seen just quietly launch and slowly scale themselves up on their own. But their launch is very quiet. They don't do big PR. They don't do big press events. They don't do, big influencer pushes. And you don't necessarily have to. You can always launch quietly and slowly test and learn into what works. There's a brand I talked to this morning that's doing $4 million a month. They launched, 8 to 10 months ago, very quietly, didn't even think it was going to work. It was their side project. Now it's become, $50 million a year revenue business, which is insane. So all that said, launch days are big and you should try to maximize that buzz you get, but you need to have a plan in place for day 2, week 2, month 2, et cetera. That's going to actually help you sustain growth, customer acquisition, sell through your products, et cetera. Now, as soon as you launch, there's a ticking time bomb on the inventory, the fees that accrue with that, sitting and not moving, and obviously the rest of the money being spent to keep the lights on for the business. So with that said, here's what I think is the ingredient list, and then I'll get into the recipe. So I think you need a landing page that you can modify, edit, update, swap imagery on, right? Ideally, that's in Shopify. You need a static meta ads template that you can edit, modify based on the learnings. I also recommend doing this in Figma. Ideally, you've got 10 to 20 static ad templates in Figma. And there's a few different services you can use to get these templates done. You want to have at least 15 to 20 grand in advertising budget that you're totally okay to lose, right? So again, I should also preface this by saying this 0 to 1 strategy is entirely focused on brands that don't have an audience built in or, are looking to just generate sales pretty quickly. Obviously there's, if you've got a YouTuber or you have a content creator attached to the brand, there's a lot of things you can do before you start spending dollars, but today's episode goes through how to spend it most efficiently. So you've got 15 to 20K, and then you've got a video editor to help iterate on concepts. If you don't have somebody here, like here meaning the United States or wherever you live, I would try to find somebody overseas, whether you look at Sri Lanka, or you look at the Philippines or South America, amazing talent in all these regions. And also the cost arbitrage kind of helps you as a founder to bring that person on board. Marketing measurement is hard. And honestly, it's just getting worse day by day. Reported conversions are often double counted across platforms, and click-based attribution is misleading and oftentimes incomplete. Today, sophisticated marketers are moving away from attribution and more towards incrementality in order to maximize growth and efficiency. This is where House comes in. House is a fully self-service experimentation platform that allows you to configure regional test and control experiments to measure incrementality and identify points of diminishing returns. Brands like Caraway, Jones Road Beauty, Ritual, and Hexclad, they all use House, and it helps them save millions of dollars because they can quickly identify what is actually driving incremental sales versus just what's over-reporting sales. These types of tests are super hard to set up and can be really tricky to get right. That's why my favorite solution for this is House. They have cutting-edge technology, they have PhD economists and data scientists who have built these solutions before at companies like Amazon and Google. The platform allows you to test all your marketing channels, both online and offline. It allows you to measure the impact across these channels, whether it's D2C, retail, or Amazon. And honestly, you can really just upload your sales reports from your retail stores and it runs all the numbers for you. And it allows you to calibrate your platform reporting for incrementality using House. With House, you can finally answer questions like, what is the ideal spend volume in this channel? Or what is the right mix of upper and lower funnel media? Finally, add scientific rigor to your marketing and make the most impact with your spend. To learn more, go to house.io/limited. That's haus.io/limited to get started. And then the last one is content creators. So ideally, if you can, you should have 4 to 7 people that you can rely on to create good content. The way I'd recommend doing this is you want to find 4 to 7 people that you can always rely on, not just 4 to 7 people to create content once. And so the way I like to do this is, find a bunch of people, maybe 10, 15 people, give them a single project, and you'll probably find like 4 to 7 that you can really rely on over and over again. You want to make sure you've got price set in stone. You've got any rules around whitelisting or how you can use the content set in stone. You want to make sure you have timelines set in stone. So you know ahead of time, if you have a new product launch, that you can rely on, Kevin to deliver you assets back within 48 or 72 or 96 hours, whatever it may be. So all that said, again, that ingredients list, a landing page, static ad templates, 15 to 20K in ad budget, a video editor, and content creators. So let's go into the individual ones. So landing page and offer. So I always think every good landing page should have an offer. Sometimes I get that there's some brands that don't want a discount, and, totally for that. As long as you've got the brand around it to justify, you can do that, right? Luxury brands do it. Jolie actually does a really good job of it. But also they've built that brand around it, right? Louis Vuitton doesn't have to go tell people who Louis Vuitton is. Jolie obviously is a new brand, but they've done such a good job building the brand that they don't necessarily need the discount, and that's not a part of their strategy. That said, for 95% of you, applying a discount is going to be what gets people over the fence. So just your product selling at full price is probably not going to convert a bunch of new people that are coming into the door, unless your product market fit is off the charts, right? There's a few examples of that, but for majority of brands, that's not the case. And so you need to think about what kinds of offers you can run that work in your favor and in the prospective customer's favor too, meaning people who are coming to your site, they see your offer and they feel like they want to make a purchase. So some ideas for this, offer are you can have a flat percentage off your order, 10%, 15, 20. Honestly, I've seen it kind of all over the range. Generally, it's between 10 and 20. Although if you get into the world of food and beverage, high consumption, high repeat, reorder, it can sometimes be anywhere from 20 to 30. Another lever there is gift with purchase. So, you have a free candle, a free traveling case, something that's high margin and has high perceived value, but contributes to the product experience. So I'll give you another example. If Cadence capsules, they sell their Cadence capsules, and then, a gift with purchase example would be a DOP kit, right? It comes there, it's high margin in the sense that the perceived value might be $29 for the DOP kit, but it might actually cost them $1.90 to produce it. So it's got high margin in that sense, meaning your actual net cost to produce it is really low, and it contributes to the product experience, meaning you can put your capsules in the DOP kit, makes a lot of sense. And therefore, when you merchandise that or show that, display that on the product page or the landing page, it makes a lot of sense as to why you would want to get the offer that includes the free DOP kit. Another example, spend X, get Y dollars off your order. So, spend $100, get $15 off your order. Buy X, get one free. So, buy 5 capsules, get one free. That's actually the offer that we use to scale Cadence to 8 figures initially. Another one that I love doing is cash back. Why? Because you're not giving a percentage off the gross revenue amount off the top. You're actually, let's say you spend $100 and I'll give you $20 cash back, right? That's better than giving $20 off, because $20 off would be off the gross price. In this case, the $20 that I'm giving you to come back is the gross $20, whereas the actual COGS for me to get you $20 worth of value might be, $4 or $3. And so the reason I love cash back is because that $20 I'm giving you is really $4 of cost to me. Does that make sense? So those are probably the easiest to start with and the most applicable. If you've got subscription, then you can incentivize a future subscription order to be discounted or for free. If you have something like your third subscription comes with X, or actually HelloFresh just started doing this. I saw that they offered, if you subscribe to HelloFresh on your third box, which must be the point in which they realize that if somebody stays with us for 3 months, or maybe it's 2, but if somebody stays with us for 3 months, then we have them for, X amount of most likely guaranteed LTV. They're actually offering a free caraway pan. So they're taking whatever their wholesale cost of buying that caraway pan was, let's just say it's $100 for number's sake. They're taking that and basically giving that to you as a gift with purchase as an incentive to stay on subscription with them and to continue being a customer. Now, back to the landing pages, you really want to build something functional, and it really doesn't need to look like it came from, Red Antler or Gin Lane, which are, the iconic branding agencies of this industry. But it does need to look like something your mom could come to and, would know everything start to finish. And so there's a few main questions that I like to ask. That is, what is the product? Why does this brand exist? Why is this product going to better my life? How is this company the best option? Why is this company the best option on the market? How fast do I get it if I order today? And why should I trust this brand or product? I've mentioned this before in another episode, but it's really important to take these 6 questions or so and constantly answer them over and over and over again. Every section of the page should answer 1 or 2 of these questions. Your hero should probably try to answer all 6, honestly, or at least 5 of the 6, because 75% of the people aren't going to scroll past 2 inches below your hero or whatever's above the fold. And so you want to make sure you can cram as much of that information in obviously a UX friendly way. So it's not overloading or it's not going to confuse somebody, but you got to make sure it's all there. The thing is that these 6 questions are so important because, if you think about answering these questions, you might get it, right? You're like, why do I have to explain that this is a capsule that holds your liquids? And the truth is, because you're drinking the Kool-Aid, right? You know everything that goes on. You spent 2 years building this product. Everybody else does not have that context. And so you got to make it really simple. I always actually think about, if I'm creating something on a site, it should make sense to 3 people. One is, if my mom jumps on the website and goes through, she should have no questions. 2 is if somebody is 2 drinks deep of whiskey or bourbon, which is pretty strong, 2 drinks deep, they should be able to navigate the whole site, not have any questions, and ideally really not leave the site to go figure out questions. And then the 3rd is a 5th grader, which I love using that analogy of 5th grade copy, because I think that, for the internet, you kind of want to assume that everybody is, this is probably not PC to say, but you got to assume everybody's dumb on the internet. And so when you build a site, when you copyright a site, you can't get fancy, especially, right now we're talking about a landing page. You can't get fancy in the sense that you want to try to use all this professional jargon and fancy words. You got to be super straightforward, super simple, and just make it easy to respond. Okay, so honestly, that is probably all I would say as far as landing pages go. So the next big thing that is helpful for 0 to 1, and the rest of these go by a little bit faster, but the next big one is review collection. So everybody knows influencers can be bought, media companies can be bought. Everyone's super cautious of what's real and what's not, right? There was even just recently, there was another law that passed. It either passed or it's very close to passing about reviews on e-commerce sites, and specifically that if there are any reviews that show up that are fake, or you can't prove were written by a verified purchasing customer, you can get in a lot of trouble. And we obviously see this happen a lot with Amazon, where everybody's always trying to get Amazon reviews, and people are like, well, you can't just go to the link and write a review, or purchase the product and then write a review. You got to go through all the crazy steps to try to trick Amazon into not thinking that you're trying to write a review to inflate the brand. So all that said, there's a lot of focus on reviews, but it really is one of the best levers for social proof. It is influencers, again, they'll say whatever you want them to say if you pay them the right amount. Media companies, they'll say whatever you want them to say as long as you're paying them. But organic customers, those are the real ones. And ideally, you phrase your review collection in a way where somebody is really talking about the problems they had, what your product did to solve that problem, and how it made their life better. Kind of even going back to those 6 questions we talked about on the landing page. Personally, I'm a fan of having this be a plain text email that goes out a few days after delivery, asking them to leave a review. You should emphasize the fact that you're a new business and their contribution would mean the world to you. And honestly, it totally will. And it's okay to be honest about that. Until you're going about 100 orders per day, I think you should focus on sending these out one by one from a real email, like from a person, from an employee. Maybe it's just yourself if you're listening to this, not through an automated email. You really want the highest potential deliverability rate, and you want to show up in their important tab of the inbox. So, one trick actually, if you're a subscriber to the newsletter that I write, then you'll notice too, the first email that you get, actually, I talk about how my favorite food is Thai food, and I want you to reply and tell me your favorite food. And what does that do? That puts everybody into the important inbox without realizing it. Well, now I just told you my secret, but that's what you should try to do here too. That's why you want to write those emails going out for reviews from a real person, because you want to maximize the fact that this is going to get into the important inbox and that ideally somebody's going to reply to you right away. So I think you should hit these one by one. Ideally, you want to get reviews with imagery attached or videos attached, and then make sure you thank them properly, especially if these are your first 1,000 or 5,000 customers. It could be something like a $10 gift card or a $10 Venmo. You can tell them like, hey, I'm going to buy you a slice of pizza, or your next coffee's on me. That's essentially just a $5 Venmo. And the cost of a $5 Venmo compared to the benefits you're going to get from using those reviews in content is going to be well worth it. Okay. So now going past reviews and into organic content. So emailing and texting all your friends on launch date is definitely the right strategy, but you can't really stop there, right? You're going to need some compelling ads if you want to scale. And that said, organic social is, in my opinion, one of the best places to test and learn concepts that'll work well for ads before you even start running them as ads. You want to try to put them out on social platforms that are set up for distribution: TikTok, Reels, YouTube Shorts, honestly, X or Twitter now as well has been doing a really good job of this. But you want to create a bunch of stuff. Honestly, the way I would go about it is I would do research on what type of problems are people having. So let's say you sell, colostrum. You could easily find all of the problems that colostrum solves for by a simple Google search. But take it one level further and go to TikTok, go to Reddit, go to YouTube comments, try to find what are the deeper reasons people would want to use colostrum, or what are some of the problems that people are having that would then lead them to have colostrum as a product that solves for that. Most of what makes good organic content happens in the research and is within the angle of the content, like the first 5 seconds, not necessarily the production value or the time you post or things of that nature. And so I'm a huge fan of using Reels, Shorts, and TikTok as a place to test a bunch of content. Here's an easy way to do it, right? Figure out the product you're selling. Let's say it's a colostrum or a sleep gummy. Let's just do sleep gummy for ease, because maybe everybody doesn't know what colostrum is. You've got a sleep gummy. You write down the 25 reasons somebody would want to take that product. Okay, maybe they do a nighttime exercise and they just need some assistance getting tired and going to sleep. Okay, that's reason number 1. They woke up super late and as a result, they can't sleep on time. It messes up their next day of sleep. Okay, that's reason number 2, to sleep on time. They toss and turn all night, and because of that, they wake up with, lesser quality sleep. Basically, you go through all 25 reasons and then start to create content that answers those reasons, right? So you create that content, you put it out, you test it, you see what works. You'll figure out what your baseline is, and whatever over indexes from the baseline, run that as an ad. And see how that does. There's also, when we run Facebook ads, one thing we also do is we always have this open campaign that is, an ASC campaign focused on taking whatever does well organic social. We put it in there and we try to see what it does from a sales standpoint. Same concept here, right? You want to figure out what does well organically and then take that and put it into a paid concept. Okay, and then that leads us right into the paid ad strategy. So again, we're going to start with angles, right? Put together that list of angles that make sense. You could also just ask yourself, why should somebody buy the product? Or what was the reason that I created the product? If you're just launching paid ads, honestly, that second question I said, what is the reason I created this product, is usually a great starting point. That is usually if that's the reason that you started this company, a lot of times it's a good enough reason for people to want to try the product. Okay, so the way to test this would be start by putting together the list of angles, right? They can be short and brief, just list them out. Take those ideas and try to combine the ones that are very similar. Honestly, one thing you could do too is go to ChatGPT and just ask it what angles it recommends. So you can say something like, you know, my customer is a 34-year-old woman who's doing X that makes this income, and this is the product we made, and this is why we exist. Can you help me come up with, 12 reasons why somebody of this demographic would want this sleep gummy? And you'll get some good answers. If you're too generic in the input prompt, like you don't say who the customer is or what the product is you sell, it's not going to give you anything that's super custom. You're just going to get very generic stuff. You can take those angles and turn what ChatGPT says into briefs for your video editor and your content creators, or just give it to content creators and have them create content that you then send to your video editors. You can also take this and turn it into static ads, right? So taking the angles or the problems that you're solving for and put them into static ads. The reason I love static ads, the CPM is about a third of the CPM it is for a video ad. So it just gives you a little bit more room to play and test. I would set a budget of, $400 or $500 a day in Meta, and I would just start testing. You want to make sure that you're focusing on specific customer audiences as you build out the campaign. I wouldn't go broad on, your first purchase. Obviously on Twitter, everybody talks about going broad, but what they don't include to say is that they're going broad because they've spent, years or tons of money training the pixel prior to that about what broad actually means, right? When you run broad, essentially what Facebook is doing is quickly looking for signals of how to narrow, it sends it out super wide, but it's really looking for little tester signals. Oh, okay, this person slowed down. Oh, that person stopped. Oh, 3 people bought. Okay, what was common with those 3? Oh, they all, they're all of this demographic. Then when it says broad, it's still really narrowing it down quite a bit. It's not actually broad. So all that said, you can't go broad if you don't have prior historical spend. I would not recommend it. I would start with interests. As you build up an audience, you could go into lookalikes and then eventually broad. You got to think of Meta as a person, right? If the ads engine doesn't know who to go for, you can't just be like, hey, go find me customers. It's not going to work. You're going to end up spending a lot of money on ads, and it's just not going to work. Lastly, as you're now driving these ads to your landing page, which we talked about earlier, use something like heatmap.com to understand what is actually working, what's interesting, and what's just fluff, right? Heatmap will show you not only how far somebody's scrolling down, but also where's the mouse going? Where is it stopping and hovering? Where are people scrolling to on their iPhone before they leave? What are they clicking? What are they clicking that they think is a link but is not, and vice versa? And it'll just give you better qualitative insights to understand what's actually working and what's not. You're definitely going to have changes to make. If you have no changes to make based on the heat map, you're lying to yourself. And yeah, it's totally fine to have a horrible version 1 of your site or your landing page. You just need to be willing to improve it and not be romantic about the design. So once you do that, I would still focus on, basically just go back to the last couple steps. I would focus on creating new content, iterating on the content you have, and starting to figure out what is driving purchases or what's getting people to the site. You might even realize that you're getting a bunch of add to carts or initiate checkout, but nobody's purchasing, right? That means that people are feeling like whatever the promise was that got them to add to cart, they feel like is no longer valid once they're at that step. And so try to isolate where the drop-off is and then diagnose and fix that based on where the drop-off is. Don't just assume, oh, these ads aren't working, or, the site's not working. You got to really understand exactly where that drop-off is, because depending on the point of drop-off, whether it's at the ad level or at the landing page to add to cart, or the landing page to even go down, where you scroll down to the shop section, wherever that drop off is happening, that is the insight of what you need to fix. And you need to think of this as a really long pipe where there are holes that are in the pipe, and it's up to you as the marketer to go fix those holes. Those holes might be getting a click from the ad. That hole might be the nobody's clicking on the checkout button once they add a product to cart. The hole might be that everybody leaves once they realize they have to put their credit card in. Whatever it may be, you got to figure out where those holes in the pipe are, and it's on you to do that, right? That is the entire thing about building a brand. Okay, so now we go into doubling down. So as you start to find things that are working, angles, styles of creative, hooks, messaging, etc., do not lose sight of constantly testing and learning. Most people fail paid ads because they don't take the time to go through all the steps above. They run ads once, they can't make it work, they lose $5,000, they never try again. Or they do the same thing with an agency that ends up costing them $25,000 when you add in all the fees, and they never want to do it again. They don't believe that paid ads works for their business. Once you start getting customers in the door, you cannot forget to focus and invest in other low-hanging fruit. So you need to make sure that you're using social proof that you earn in the ads themselves. You need to be duplicating landing pages and testing new angles. You need to be optimizing your subject lines in your email to test for higher open rates. You need to be setting up SMS collection and flows, especially on abandoned cart or abandoned checkout flows. You need to be iterating on the email pop-up to get from 4%, 3% is average in Klaviyo. I think 5% is pretty average from what I see on the internet, but you should be at 12 to 15% once you're really getting going. And you need to be sending customers surveys so that you can actually understand what is it that they like about your brand, what did they hate, why did they buy, who did they buy for, how long have they known about the brand or the product before they bought it, what's the purpose they're buying it for. You want to get the answers to all these things because this is going to help you in your content, in your marketing, in how you plan your budgets, in where you decide to spend. All of these things are a result of getting all this context. And the more context you have, the better decisions you can make as a business. Now, the last thing that I think is really important to make sure you have in your 0 to 1 is understanding your upsells, cross-sells, and product expansion. So if you're selling, Moise, who started Native, as you know, did this phenomenally. So he realized that if he sells the same product as a post-purchase upsell at 30% off, there's a very high take rate. In fact, that had the highest take rate. Same product, 30% off. And what did that do for his AOV? That increased his AOV by about 40% without doing anything. And so it made their Facebook ads a lot more efficient. It made their whole P&L a lot more efficient. They became profitable on the first purchase. And it just also helped to extend the LTV because the more people tried, the more likely they were to come back. Now, the same thing happens in pre-purchase as well, right? If I buy a coconut vanilla deodorant, I might see an upsell for a second one or an upsell for a different, maybe I'll get the shampoo or the body wash as a potential upsell. The whole point is you need to think about what are your upsells, cross-sells, and your tier 2 products that are going to help drive higher AOV. So if we go back to the Cadence example, right, your tier 1 products are your capsules, right? Those are your flagships. That's what you're always pushing. Your tier 2 products are things that essentially just help AOV, or, there might be that DOP kit. It might be merch. It might be, when I was at Hint, we would run gift with purchases with socks or spatulas, whatever it may be. But you want to have some sort of a tier 2 product that you can offer as upsell, cross-sell, something to increase the AOV. Or at some points too, it could just be that gift with purchase, right? That could be your lever that helps you drive that gift with purchase. So everything that I talked about here, starting from the pre-launch test to the landing page, to the review collection, to the organic content, to the paid ad strategy, to doubling down, to upsells, cross-sells, etc. All of that is what's going to get you from 0 to 1. The other thing is, making your first million, it sounds intimidating, can sound intense. It's a lot of money, right? $1 million. Here's how you should think of this. Think of it as, I need to get to 3K a day. That should be your only job once you start, is how do I get to $3,000 a day in sales on Shopify? And how do I do that quickly? Once you're at 3, you've hit $1 million a year. That's the $1 million a year revenue threshold, is 3K a day. So once you hit 3K a day, then you go for 5K a day. Once you hit 5K a day, it becomes easier to get to 10K a day. Once you're at 10K a day, then you basically focus again a lot on this, the doubling down, understanding the content, testing new angles. That's going to get you to 20K a day. And essentially, all of these have different growth periods between each. And maybe a future episode will be going from 10 million a year to 50 million a year, or 30 million a year to 50 million a year. But the reality is that you got to get to 3K a day first. Once you're at 3, get to 5. Once you're at 5, get to 10. Once you're at 10, a lot of your problems go away. You've sort of figured out product market fit. You understand that this product has a role in, society or whatever. And you're good to continue scaling. So that's today's episode. I hope it was helpful. Feel free to shoot me a note. n@sharma.com is my email if you've got any questions. I've also got this episode written up as a newsletter. So if you want a copy of that, shoot me an email or a Twitter DM and I'll get you that. And if you've got anything you would add or things that you've done that have done well, also shoot me a note, DM me or email me. I would love to add it in before I share this out with everybody. And I appreciate you listening. I hope that you have a beautiful rest of your week, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next time to cut through the noise on CPG, retail, and e-commerce. If you enjoyed this episode, why not share it with a friend? And be sure to subscribe wherever you listen so you don't miss the next one.